Welcome back to our Dream in the Woods. We're continuing our self-build barndominium, and what I'm going to work on today is do some milling, and I'm working on the Soffit material. So let me show you what I got going on. Okay, so Soffit is the material where that OSB is showing. That's part of the SIP panel. And then the front board is the fascia. So I did the math on all the overhangs. So those overhangs, these overhangs on the second piece of the roof. But it doesn't end there. Then there's all of this soffit material, which is basically an 8-foot overhang. So ends up being a lot of material. It's about 1,500 square feet, which on a 1-inch board is 1,500 board feet. So this is my idea. So this is part of my gap, nickel gap interior cladding that I'm going to use, Douglas Fir. And this is designed to have basically a nickel gap in there. And these were 6-inch boards that were planed down, so there's a 5-inch face. So I think I'm going to keep that same lap joint. And all the other siding is going to be rough cut, and so I want that to show rough, and then we'll stain it the same color as our siding. So no gap, although it may dry and show a gap, and I'm okay with that. But and then instead of a 5-inch face, I'm going to try to get a 6-inch face, and that means making the boards 7 inches wide, so 1x7s, and with a finished product that'll be 6 inches wide, and it'll be rough cut on one side. The other side, the back side, will be smooth, and then we'll just put those up as a lap joint and screw from the face. So there will be screws in these face. I don't want to use a finish nail because I don't trust that OSB for pull out, and a screw will be better. So I have a pile of these 10-foot logs that'll leftover premium grade Douglas Fir, and these have already kind of been washed up from a kid that's been doing a little work for me, Jackson. So these are all raring to go on the mill, and I think I need 300 1x7s to do this project, which seems crazy, but it's a big structure. I don't know, that's what the math says. Quick update on the plumbing. This was inspected yesterday and says looks good, but needs to be under pressure. Needs to either have 5 pounds of air pressurizing the system or full of water. So I got a cap for the pipe that's in the septic tank, and then I put some wax on that lower clean out and filled it up. And I don't know if you can tell, water right there. It's holding just exactly the way it should. And so I already scheduled a new inspection. And then he said you could, as long as you leave the joints exposed, we could start putting some sand on it. So I put some sand on it just to keep those pipes from going wonky in the sun. So he'll be here in a day or two, so that'll be done. Also had the inspection on the septic tank and drain field. He liked everything he saw except for the material I used for the fabric. This is kind of a plasticky stuff that I got from Home Depot that was in the landscaping section. I thought that's what I needed, but this one actually retains water to a degree, and he said you really want the stuff that breathes and lets the water come right through it. So I'm replacing this with more of a cloth type fabric, and so kind of that's what that stuff there is. So I think we'll use those pieces in our French drain, so it'll get some use. Just gonna have to pull it out and put the new stuff in, and it's ready to go. The other thing he said is just make sure you have a foot of soil over the top of the drain field, and that's more to this far end, and we already know that and are planning for it. So pass on this one, re-inspection on the other one. Okay, I have a 10-foot, not sure what the small end diameter is. It's about 16 inches, something like that. So now that I'm cutting 1x7s, this is 14 inches there. So I'm going to try to get a cant that's 7x14 that I can whack in half and cut 1x7s out of. That's my goal. Kind of a bell. This is a butt log, and I decided that I'm going to try to bring 2 logs at a time up, just so I'm maybe increase my efficiency a bit. 7 inches. Why am I not cutting 1x8s? And this is the reason here. So, okay, so one of the limitations of the Woodland HM130 is that right there. I can get, there's 7 inches between the top of the, or the bottom of the housing to the top of the blade. So I can cut a 7-inch, but I can't cut an 8-inch. So I'm still going to maximize things. It's fine. Would I rather cut 1x8s? Yeah. But that requires a bigger saw, and I don't have it. I can cut 1x8s, 1x10s, 1x12s. I can cut whatever I want. It just has to be below the saw blade. So it doesn't limit you there. But if you want to try to cut 16x16 into quarters, can't do it. So anyway, enough about that. Let's get sawing.
Oh, what did you just have?
Chocolate, ice cream chocolate.
Ice cream, chocolate ice cream. It's
Yeah, it was flat.
It's a yeah, it's flat. It's
It
a
was
ice.
this big.
It's called an ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, it's like different, like the egg, like the different, like it's like the not the same, not the same sandwich.
Right, not
It's
like a
the-
peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
No,
Right.
that's not the same. Is that one is like different and I think so. How can I even do this?
It's like an ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, and I can easy do this
And get down.
Yeah, not jump because I would just fell.
Yeah, that would be dangerous.
Yeah, I'll just try it, and I'll get my and I will hurt myself.
Okay.
Getting after it here the next morning. Out of those 2 logs I did yesterday, I got 34. I just kind of have them covered, trying to keep them out of the sun. So got 2 more logs on deck. Nice ones. This one actually does have a little bit of a bow in it, but not too bad. And kind of thinking maybe I should have put some end sealer on this. They are cracked in a few inches, but they're cut long. But a end sealer would have probably been worth my time, especially in the heat here in the summer. So anyway, kind of getting a routine down to cutting these 1x7s. So far, I haven't really, the logs aren't big enough to use this limitation. And so, I don't know, I probably could have got by doing 1x8s, but I'm in it now, so I'm going to continue on. And my goal today is 120 boards. I got 34 yesterday, and that was definitely just a third of a day, but I'm going to try to get out, try to hit it hard. 120 boards is the goal. Okay, just a little commentary on my thought process on these logs. So that is not a random width. I'll show you why. 12.5 corresponds to that mark right there. So that means on my 1-inch scale, I can get 12 boards out of that. And so that's how I set up that cut. And I want it to be at least 7 inches wide and maximize how many boards I get out of there. So then I kind of determine the center, where I want the center of this cant that's going to be here. And that kind of depends on how close I cut it, and the center of the pith a little bit, but mainly I'm just doing the log. And so then I'm doing 7.5, so I need to go 3.5 wide. That gives me that mark right there. And then I know I want to get 1, 2, probably just 2 boards out of that. So then I'll bring my saw down to there, zero it out with my lift electronics, and then go up 2 boards, make 3 cuts, and then I'll know I'll be on this mark, and then that'll kind of center from here on a 7-inch. So it'll be 7 by 12.5 basically by the time I'm done with that cant. And so then I'll get 2 flitches out of this, and then 2 or 3 flitches out of this bottom piece. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time commentary because I want to get after it today, but that's basically how I've been cutting these logs. Okay, this is log number 4. Yeah, log number 4. I'm still struggling with this lift, and I replaced the battery. So I put a big battery in there, but it's just not keeping up. And so I'm struggling with big lifts. You know, a couple inches, no problem. But if you need to go 6 or 8 or 10, 12, 14, something like that, then it's just taking a long time. I'm hooking the battery charger to it, all those kinds of things. It's definitely a rate limiting step here. So to prevent from going from 0 or 1 inch up to like 14 or 15 on a big log like this, I just been cutting cants. And so those are 7 inches wide and it's set up for 1 inch boards. I think the bigger one's 12 and the other one's 9 boards. So I'll do the same thing with this one, set that up with a cant, and then depending on what the circumstance is, I might have to cut the flitches first and then put all 3 cants or all 3 of those big ones up there and then cut 1 inch boards 3 at a time. So, and then I'll be down at 1, and then yeah, I'll have to struggle with getting it back up. So I already talked to Josh about this. The bigger battery was a try, so I don't know if it's helping, maybe, but it's bumming me out. So, but so far so good. Okay, so here's the idea. Those are 3 different logs, 3 cants. They're all 7 inches wide and then various tall, depending on what I could get out of the log. And so then I'll just cut 1-inch boards. Eventually I'll be cutting all 3 of those cants at 1-inch boards and start peeling off good lumber. That way I only have to go down on my saw to 1 once, and then I'll struggle with it getting it back up, and then I can cut all these flitches here. So anyway, first time I've ever done that. See how it works. Last log of the day, last few cuts, ended up with a mess. So this log just happened to be real pitchy. Pitch pockets everywhere, pitch seams. I already culled one board over there. There's probably another board in here that needs to be culled because the pitch seams go all the way through the board, and I don't think it'll survive. Anyway, my blade got gummed up, and because the water had stopped, and then I fixed that, but I didn't scrape the blade or anything like that, just trying to hurry and get it done. 3 more cuts. Anyway, you can see how it dove down there, and then it lifted it up off of the mill. Yeah, just a mess. So what I'm doing here is I just cut that piece out, and then I'll take it out take the blade off with that in the piece, and basically this is all junk. So I don't know, maybe it's because I was hurrying. If I would have stopped and cleaned the blade, yeah, always second guessing. Well, kind of a bummer end to the day, but far from my goal. I thought I get 120 boards. That's 67. And of those 67, there's probably a few in there that aren't any good. I'm going to send these all to get a lap joint put in it, and then one side will be rough and one side will be smooth. And I think I'm going to put them through the kiln at the thick and thin. So I'm going to put money into those boards, and so you kind of want to make sure you have good ones going, because if you give them junk, it'll come back as junk. But 67 there and 34 there, so I think 101 boards. So I'm a third of the way to my goal of 300 boards to send up there. So it's just going to take time, which I don't really feel like I have, but and when you're out here, you just got to take it one log at a time and take your time. And if you rush it, you're going to run into problems. So away it goes. Well, I appreciate everyone watching. I didn't do a lot of live shots this video, but I'll do better next time. I'm on the sawmill, just kind of in the production mode, try to get as many boards as I can out per day, and so it is what it is. So appreciate everyone watching. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you haven't done that already, and leave a comment, and I'll try to get to them when I have some time. So anyway, more milling, lots more things going. I think Eric is going to do some dirt work this weekend. I have to work, so I won't be here this weekend. But then after that, I have a stretch of days off. So anyway, we'll get after it. Still talking about electrical, still talking about putting all the board and bat up and the metal on the bottom. Anyway, lots of stuff going on. Need to get after it. It's July's going to be here before you know it. So anyway, you guys have a good night, and we'll catch you with the next video.